I'm Courtney Fallon, and welcome to The Game Plan on Reach TV, your insider guide to this week's key NFL news. In The Game Plan, I tap into the Bleav podcast network to bring you the most important information you need to know to stay in the loop. We are less than 10 days away from the start of the NFL draft in Detroit. And as teams rush to finish up extensions and lay down franchise tags, the rumor mill, it grinds on. To go over some of the latest news dropping this week, let's hear from a friend of the show, Lofa Tatupu from the Take 12 podcast on Bleav. Lofa, are you ready to play an extended version of 3 and Out?
Let's do this.
Okay, first up, T. Higgins has publicly stated that he does intend to sign the franchise tag with Cincinnati. How huge of a win is this for Joe Burrow and the Bengals?
Oh, it's huge for both sides. He's one of the best receivers in the game, and I think he was just limited by touches last year in terms of receptions. He missed a couple games, about 4 or 5, but still his yards per catch went up to around 15 and a half, per reception. So getting him back, I just didn't see, with the trade request, it's tough to go to a new team and have instant success. And the familiarity with Joe Burrow, I think it's really going to go well, and this could be his breakout season. He's had a couple 1,000-yard season, but this could be his best season going back to the Bengals.
Okay, number 2, Devontae Smith just signed a 3-year extension worth $75 million, $51 million guaranteed. That's straight cash, homie. This will make Devontae Smith one of the 5 receivers to average over $25 million per year. Is Devontae Smith a top 5 receiver, or was his value much higher to the Eagles than other teams in the league?
I'm going to say his value's higher, but I also think this might be some gamesmanship or savviness by Howie Roseman. There's a lot of receivers that are going to be coming due for a big payday. Jefferson, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins even. So I think by setting this bar, it just makes the market higher for those guys next year. And not saying make other guys overpay, but it's a good tactic.
I love this. It reminds me of when the Patriots, after Rob Gronkowski's rookie deal, they signed into a big money contract, extended years, $52 million at the time was a lot of money for him. However, they really made sure that he wasn't available to other teams, made the kid happy. Sounds kind of like a little gamesmanship that, similar situations, but hat tip to Howie Roseman. He was the executive of the year a couple of years ago. So, hat tip. Number 3, the Colts. Anthony Richardson is back on the field throwing after suffering a Week 5 shoulder injury in 2023. What is the ceiling for Anthony Richardson?
Well, the ceiling's high, and not just because he's 6'4", but he's incredibly talented. And the getting to sit a whole year, this is something that we've seen a lot of quarterbacks have success by sitting and learning. And I know he was injured going through the rehab process, and that's not fun, but rushing a QB into play is not always recipe for success. Giving them a run game, Jonathan Taylor and that offensive line, and some targets, Pittman, I think this will be, a breakout year. It's set up for such a great year for him. So I can't really say where the ceiling is. He's that talented, Pro Bowl, All-Pro. It could happen as soon as this year.
I love that answer, and I could not agree more. It is so important to get that film session in, working with other defenses. Joe Burrow did it this past year as well, going and sitting in on defensive meetings to learn a little bit more about what the other side is bringing. So, all in good time. Let's move over to the Seahawks because, as you can tell, you are an expert up there in the Pacific Northwest. What can we expect, Lofa, from first-year head coach Mike Macdonald?
Largely we don't know. First-time head coach, so we'll see. He, had to hustle to put a staff together because he went so far in the playoffs, and John Schneider and the Hawks did their due diligence, took their time, got their guy. But we'll see what he puts together. I expect it to be based off a run game and great defense, which is what he's shown with both Harbaughs that he's worked for. So, he was a key piece in both of those teams, and I expect him to bring that formula over to here, which is kind of what led us with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch to our only Super Bowl title.
All right, we love that. Next question. Where do you see Seattle going with the 16th overall pick?
I mean, I would love to see linebacker, but we did address the need, in free agency. You got Baker, got Bernard from Buffalo. So I don't expect to see a linebacker go off the board for them soon. Probably offensive line is the most glaring need. The kid out of Washington, Fanu, and there's a couple other prospects. I know everybody's going to want to go quarterback, but, like I said, a young quarterback's best friend in the league is always the offensive line and some reliable targets. So get that run game going. And I think Geno, who he's not young, but is good. But I see offensive line being the most glaring need, or defensive line. Anything in the trenches, I'll be happy with.
You took the words right out of my mouth. We're talking about Geno Smith. It's my final question here on 3 and Out on the game plan. Lofa, do the Seahawks need to find a long-term replacement for Geno Smith?
This is, he is the most underrated quarterback in the NFL. From everything I've seen the last 2 years, all the come from behind victories, led second in the NFL in 2-minute offense last year. I wish we would have gotten more up tempo because he just seems so comfortable in making the calls at the line of scrimmage. So I wish we would have put more in his hands. He didn't have a consistent run game. He didn't have a consistent defense to lean on. So with all that, those come from behind victories, fourth quarter touchdown passes, it was insane. And I don't understand why he gets so much pushback from Seahawks and the 12s. But a long-term replacement, Geno is 33. And I think you do have to, we did trade for Sam Howell. I don't see Sam Howell as a backup for long. So that could be their replacement. And John Schneider, he always surprises me in the draft. So, he probably will draft a quarterback because I'm saying he probably won't.
Well, Drake Maye has been in the mix to be one of the first 3 players taken off the board from the start of the draft. Now, after his pro day, Matt and Phil Simms from the Simms Complete podcast have all the information they need to give a complete breakdown of this UNC product. Guys, what is your final verdict?
Hey, look, there's things you can't deny about Drake Maye. He's big, He is strong, he has a strong arm. He's very good, I think, in his workout, his pro day, but even on film. That's what I talked about a little bit. What you do in your pro day, does it mimic a lot of things that you did well as a quarterback in the games? And my answer to that would be he showed that. Strong arm and on the mobility moving around. I don't think the mobility for him is as great as we kind of thought it would be, but it's still good. It's going to be NFL solid or good. But his throwing on the run is really good. And I went back and looked at all my notes that I've written about him in a lot of games, and it was in every one. Going left, he has good mobility where he can really turn, and then going right. Matt, I've seen he did it in the pro day, which I thought was cool, but it's in the games too. When he's going right, he can throw it 50, 60 yards down the field and really high on the run. And he's pretty accurate with it too. So that's just my first couple thoughts about Drake Maye.
I agree. I actually wonder too, when I watch the pro day and think back as far as how they developed the script and all that, I almost would have incorporated some of the movement stuff earlier in the workout just to kind of get him moving and have that feel, because when he does throw on the run, he naturally turns his body in rhythm beautifully. And I thought early on, you could see he was a little tight. You could see that he didn't quite follow through enough of his throws that he missed. I mean, he missed a few that were pretty, it was pretty big time for a shorts workout. He missed them pretty big, but it was because I feel like he was almost trying to place the football instead of just following through and being patient like a great golfer does.
Thank you, gentlemen. So, to quickly recap, Drake Maye has all of the tools needed to make it in the NFL, and he excels at throwing on the run. Hey, listen, go check out the Simms Complete podcast if you want the best analysis on Drake Maye and all of the quarterbacks in this draft. We all know that unless the world suddenly gets turned upside down, Caleb Williams will be the first name called at the 2024 NFL Draft in Detroit. To ease any fears Bears fans may have about this selection, Cooper Perkins from Bleav in USC, a man who has spent more hours than anyone watching Williams perform, breaks down how his perceived negatives will have no impact in the pros.
Thanks, Courtney. Caleb Williams is such an interesting prospect for all of the reasons that people continue to highlight around the football media circles and around player development circles. And one of the big questions surrounding him is, how will he transition to the NFL, knowing that at times he has a tendency to try and do too much and play outside of the structure of offense more than he ought to? I'm here to tell you that Bears fans shouldn't be worried about that, because he's not going to have the same kind of flexibility in the NFL that he did in college. The reason behind that is that his trust level with Lincoln Riley was developed so thoroughly in their 3 years together that Caleb Williams had free reign to change plays at his own liberty. You want to see a quarterback's ability to change plays and get his offense into the right sets, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want them to have that same level of freedom. So Caleb Williams, while he is often maligned for going outside the structure of offense, really needs to be reined in his ability to change plays. The coaching staff in Chicago will not give him that same kind of control, at least not in year one. Where he will be able to thrive is within the structure of that Chicago offense and still be able to play off script, playing to his strengths, because so much of what makes him a special prospect is the fact that he's able to play off script with such exceptional results. Now, does he occasionally do it in situations where he shouldn't? Maybe. A lot of that also comes back to USC was frankly a really lousy team with a poor offensive line and an unimpressive receiving core last year. If he has pieces around him that he's comfortable working with, he's perfectly capable of playing within the structure of a game plan and distributing the ball like an elite NFL quarterback. Thanks, Courtney. Back to you.
All right, Cooper, great insight. Yes, I also agree. The coaching staff for the Bears will have much more control over the play calling, so the issue of going off script will be a non-factor in Chicago. Let's keep with our QB theme today and move on to LSU's Jayden Daniels. Blake Ruffino from the Are You Serious podcast on Bleav lays down why Daniels is actually the best quarterback in the draft. Let's hear Blake's argument.
Thanks, Courtney. Jayden Daniels is by far the best quarterback in this year's draft. Look what he did at LSU, not just throwing the football all over the place in the SEC, but also what he did running the football. You look at games like Alabama, you look at games like Florida, what he did in the comeback against Missouri, winning the SEC West in 2022. By far, for me, he is the best quarterback in this class. I think that he has shown that when the moment is brightest, he can rise to the top, winning the Heisman in 2023. I think he's a more polished Lamar Jackson, throwing the football all over the place, and I think he can give you that same type of running ability. The only thing is can he stay healthy? Can he get down when he needs to? If I am a GM, if I am a person that is going to pick in the top 2, top 3, the number one person on my board has to be Jayden Daniels for all that he's accomplished, for what he's done on the field. And by the way, he is the ultimate leader. You talk to anybody at LSU, they will tell you that he was the guy for the Bayou Bengals. So if it's me, I'm going Jayden Daniels number 1, and I don't think it's even a question mark. And I understand Caleb Williams is out there, but Jayden Daniels is him.
Wow, that is a hell of a sales pitch for Jayden Daniels. All joking aside, Blake hit on some solid points. Jayden has a ton of SEC level experience playing in the biggest games in college football. He is a highly polished prospect, and he might get drafted by my New England Patriots 3rd overall. I don't know. We shall see. If the draft was an election, the Washington Commanders would be the swing state that would decide the winner. What the Commanders do at number 2 will decide the fates of a number of highly prized prospects. To break down just how important this pick is to the future of the Washington Commanders, let's hear from Nathan and the Stoner from the Ref the District podcast. Guys, who was the player drafted at number 2?
Thanks, Courtney. And yes, Adam Peters and the Commanders in the catbird seat here in the NFL draft. Who they select at 2 is going to dictate how the rest of the first round is going to go. And it's going to be interesting because, Stoner, no one knows what Adam Peters is going to do.
Nobody knows. We're pretty sure it's going in the direction of quarterback, but we're not 100% positive. We're trying to read these tea leaves and figure out which way he's going. But no matter what they decide to do, Nathan, this is the biggest decision that this organization has had to make really in the last 20 plus years. And it's going to be probably, we're going to look back, it's going to be a seminal moment in the organization's history going forward, whether it's a positive or a negative.
Yeah, and so when they make the right choice and take J.J. McCarthy at 2, look for Drake Maye or Jayden Daniels to start sliding, and maybe Minnesota gets lucky and they don't even have to move up at 11 to get their guy at QB.
I think you're insane, Nathan. It's probably going to be Jayden Daniels. I like Jayden Daniels the best, but look, we have no idea. But whatever happens also here at this pick, it's going to dictate the entire rest of the first round. So Washington is kind of in that power position for this draft.
Well, you can catch Ref the District for all of your Commander information right on YouTube live every Wednesday at 7:30 Eastern, or wherever you find your Bleav Network podcast. You can hear us there as well. Back to you, Courtney.
Okay, so the guys think Washington will take Jayden Daniels, but I am hoping that they snag Drake Maye so that Daniels falls to New England at number 3. Okay, it is time to play Pick 6 on the game plan. And this week, we are taking a look at the 6 most overrated players in the draft with Bleav's Joe Deleone, because he's the draft expert. Joe, welcome back to the show. Are you ready to play a little overrated Pick 6?
Of course, and could not be a better topic. We're right around draft time, and man, we got to cut through all the craziness that's going on.
For sure. Let's start off with the number 1 player on your list. I would say there's not really a level of different overrated players because there's some pretty good names that are on here. But let's start with the first one. Is Chop Robinson. Why does he make your list?
Yeah, right now, Chop Robinson, and I think throughout this whole process, especially after his combine performance, has been billed as this late first-round pick. Now, he tested tremendously well. He ran a really good 40 time. I think that he is more suited as a situational pass rusher in the NFL rather than a full-time edge rusher. Could he turn into an every down edge rusher in a few years? Sure, but right now he is not worthy of that first-round selection that some people are saying he should be.
I love the logic. All right, number 2, Marshawn Kneeland.
Yeah, I haven't really been able to get the whole hype for Marshawn Kneeland. I think that I understand that there is a high ceiling to him. I see that this is a prospect who he's got the length, he's got the power, he can defend the run pretty well. But for me, he's just way too raw to consider him to be worthy of a top 100 pick. It's going to take some time for him to actually come to fruition. If I was going to bank on a more traitsy pass rusher, I would go with Jalix Hunt from Houston Christian instead.
It depends on the systems. Listen, you could draft a player, but if it's the perfect system, the perfect fit, they can excel. But that's why, we are all the draft experts until they get on the field in the summer for preseason. All right, the next one on your list is Marshawn Lloyd. Why does he make the most overrated players in the NFL draft?
He has been billed as the biggest sleeper amongst the running backs, the guy that's going to surprise everybody. But if you pay attention to what he did during his time at USC, especially this last year, all of his good games were against their worst opponents. All of his worst games came against the best teams that they played, and he was non-existent. I also think it's important to know that oftentimes when facing a light box, his yards per carry average was one of the lowest amongst some of the top running back prospects in this class. So I understand that he's got great long speed, but his change of direction, his strength, his ability to run through tacklers, I think he is more worthy of going somewhere on day 3.
A very popular name pops up on your list, and I have to really agree with you here. J.J. McCarthy came out of nowhere, but he makes your list. And just give me your insight as to why you think J.J. McCarthy is an overrated player for this draft.
I don't think that J.J. McCarthy is necessarily not worthy of getting picked in the first round. And I think that at the beginning of this process, he to me fit the description of a really traitsy, athletic quarterback that has some potential, but doesn't really have the reps under his belt as a passer and the situations of difficulty that some of these other guys have. But this has been just a balloon effect of how much his draft stock has increased over the course of this season. I think that there is a path for him to be successful if he goes to the Minnesota Vikings. I just think that because he's so boom or bust, he could be a bit overrated because we're billing him to be, some are saying, the second best quarterback in this class, and I just do not see that.
Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I think we all can remember watching his dad play in the NFL, but why do you believe Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is an overrated prospect?
Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is a lot smaller than his dad was, and then also is a bit of a throwback in his capabilities for a linebacker for what the NFL is looking in today's game. He does not have the sideline to sideline capabilities, nor the instincts or the vision to be a full-time starting inside linebacker, but we'll have to see if he could pan out. There's other guys that are far more gifted, like Junior Colson, like Edgerrin Cooper, like Tyrese Knight from UTEP, that I'd much rather bet on.
All right, Joe, this has been a very special Pick 6, and I love all of the insight. Have to encourage everyone to go check out all of his NFL draft content on Bleav. Let's finish up with T'Vondre Sweat. Why does he make this list for you?
T'Vondre Sweat was a really big name throughout this college football season, especially his presence was definitely felt, and he is a massive human being. We saw at the Senior Bowl especially how powerful and strong he is. I just do not see much pass rush upside. I see somebody who could be a really, really good run defender, but is only worthy of being on the field for 2 downs at a time. I just don't have any evidence to say that I think he could be a fully used defensive tackle in the NFL.
Thank you so much for all the information and for joining us on the show once again, Joe Deleone.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's all the time we have today on The Game Plan. Go check out the Bleav Podcast Network for more in-depth analysis on every team in the league, and we'll see you next week as we continue to prepare for the NFL Draft, which is next week. So we'll see you then.